I don't know what happened here. Sorry, I don't even know if this is going on. If you're watching on the comments, on my side of it, looks like a black screen, or at least the intro looked like it. Jake, I can see you in the room. What what's going on? Can you see me? I got Anyways, sorry about that, folks. Look, I guess if you're in the comments, let me know if you can hear me, see me. Well, if you don't, I'm assuming you don't. But apparently something's wrong with the StreamYard today. Anyways, I'm gonna start off with some whiskey today, some bourbon, because that's the kind of week that I've been having. Um, Before we get started, I wanted to touch on something because I was kind of embarrassed about what happened last week. And this goes back to what happened. The reason why I'm saying this, and I don't mean to sound preachy, is word came out MLF there was a huge or serious boating accident where actually three fishermen uh, passed away, died due to the accident. And there was a tournament angler for the MLF that was on the other boat. I don't know what caused the accident. I'm not interested in debating that. But what I wanted to talk to you about or mention without sounding too preachy is I think a lot of when we see that happening, I think part of us, it's in our nature to want to see justice done and see whose fault is it. And, you know, and for that person, whoever it or she is, um, to assume, the responsibility or the punishment or the consequences for any accidents that involved the loss of a life. Um, and the reason why I mentioned this is because last week I was talking to one of my good friends that I started. We started fishing in the same tournament, Slay Nation, like 5 years ago. Somebody that I really respect and I admire, and who also happens to follow my show and my podcast. And he was dealing with something similar, where a drunk driver had hit the car where his wife and stepdaughter were driving. His stepdaughter had serious life-threatening injuries, had to be rushed to the hospital. Thankfully, she survived. So did his wife. And in my conversations with him, I was like, man, I hope that SOB that caused it. I hope he gets, he gets thrown in jail and blah blah blah. Because I felt bad for him that he was going through this. And his reply to me was, we were texting. He was like, you know what, Armando, I don't harbor negative feelings to anybody. I don't wish this person ill fate. If anything, I hope he or she learns from what happened and gets his life together. And I was so embarrassed because, and this is the point what I'm trying to make, going back to the MLF, I was embarrassed because this good friend of mine is dealing with the negative feelings and all the stress and everything emotionally involved about almost losing his family. And here I am just, saying all these negative things about whoever caused this accident. Where in fact I should have focused on, on what he's going through and show him support. So when we think about what's going on and what happened in the MLF and the accident, it's natural to point fingers, but really our thoughts should be with the persons that are affected by the loss of a friend or family member, whether we're commenting on social media or commenting personally, or if we know the persons. And I don't say it to be preachy. It's just a lesson that I learned last week. And I was kind of embarrassed and I apologized. And he was like, no, it's all good. Like, you're not the first one. But still, it's something that I was like, man, yeah, when something like that happens to a friend or family, our thoughts should be with how they're doing and not like, I hope, whoever is involved in this gets thrown in jail, blah, blah, blah. So, anyways, that's what I wanted to share starting off. I don't need to share on a down note. But today we're gonna have a great episode. I got Jake Harshman, one of my good friends. He's in the podcast pretty much every year. Um, at least once or twice. It's actually doing 2 episodes this week, one with me and one with the Kurt Smith of the Advanced Kayak Angler. We'll talk a little bit about that. But anyways, let's bring our guest for today. Jake, how you doing, buddy?
What's up, my man? What's going on?
I'm glad you were able to hear me. I don't know what happened to the intro. My screen was all black. I'm like, are we live? Are we not live?
I can hear you beautifully.
Thank you, buddy. That makes me feel better.
That accent is so. Gosh, it just the silver fox over there with that accent just does something.
Get me started. I've been drinking whiskey, buddy. I'm gonna go down here real quick.
we're about to be. It's gonna be some old school podcasting.
I'm gonna go KBN real quick.
Oh my gosh! Where's Josh when we need him?
Oh my God, how is Josh doing?
The dark waters, man.
I missed that guy.
Yeah,
I'm upset that he never returned my calls. Like, we used to talk all the time when he was fishing. Then he went back to doing jiu-jitsu. That guy was extreme. It's probably still is.
Yeah, you should reach back out to him. He might be more accessible.
Have you talked to him lately?
Within the last 6 months, yeah.
Man, he's a good dude. I like Josh.
Yeah, real good dude. Real good dude.
If anybody knows Josh, he used to be. Oh crap! I didn't. He go live on Instagram. Let me do that now. He used to host the Dark Waters podcast, which you can still listen to.
Yeah, it's still on YouTube.
And still on YouTube and everything. And the guy was awesome. I mean, you gotta love him.
Yeah,
you gotta love him. It was funny.
Dude, we had some bangers on that podcast, dude.
Dude, there been more than one time where he would tell me, he's like, "Oh, I could never publish that episode. We had to do it all over." He did one with Frankie Provolone from Slay Nation, the president of Slay Nation, where he told me, he's like, "Yeah, we had to re-record it. Like, we were so blacked out, drunk, and saying so much stuff."
I love it.
It would have gotten canceled.
That's fantastic.
Big shout out to Jay from Bearded Dad Fishing. Says, "What's up, my guy?" Jay, hope you're doing great, man. All right, Jake. Before we start, we're gonna be talking about the top baits for smallmouth bass fishing. You are pretty well-known angler who's won tournaments, not just in Pennsylvania where you're from, but actually in Guntersville. You won one of the first
Seminole,
right?
Seminole. Yep, Lake Seminole, Georgia.
Lake Seminole. I thought it was Guntersville. I don't know why.
No, I never fished Guntersville.
You've been on this podcast. The funny thing is, you've been here to talk about so many different things. You talked about tournaments. You talked about the Susquehanna River. You've talked about retirement once. That was one good episode that did really well for us. I think that was with Dan Perry. I don't know if Kurt Smith was already part of the show. What's been your favorite episode? Not just that you've come here and our guests, but in general that you've done, that you've enjoyed being part of.
I mean, I genuinely really like doing your podcast.
Appreciate that. More than Josh, I'm assuming, but
so when doing it with Josh was a different feel. Like, honestly, like I could show my ass a little bit, doing Josh's podcast and not get not have to worry about getting canceled. But I think one of my favorite podcasts to date was doing it with Brad Hicks.
Oh yeah,
and Matt Souders, and Matt's mom is a huge fan of their podcast.
Yes.
So I think one of my favorite things, and it's just multiple podcasts that I've done with them now that I come on and so her name is Barb, and she does not like cursing. Which I don't know why she would ever listen to an episode that I'm in if she doesn't like cursing. But from now, like from when I learned that she listened and she liked whenever she heard her name, every time I come on the podcast, I'm like, shout out to effing Barb. So I think that's probably one of my favorite things to do. And I've never met Barb, but she seems like a very nice lady. And I can't wait to, maybe one day I will get to meet her if I ever go out to Ohio and visit Matt and Brad.
I'm sure Matt will try to put a halt to that real quick.
Not no, not like that. Well, that's not that. That took a turn, Armando. You took it down the road I didn't expect to go. Well, let me take off my shirt.
It says, "Hey, Barb." Oh man, Matt's gonna kill us for talking
Yeah.
about his mom. We're just kidding, Matt. If you listen to it, the one that you did with those guys that I still break out laughing on that one is the one you all went off on Amish people. I still can't remember. All because they
Dude,
eat bass. No,
Matt
you
does
and
not.
Matt went off, and I'm like, what did
Matt does
Amish
not like
people
the
do this to
Amish.
this guy?
And so I understand it and I get it because they fish for food and they're fishing these little rivers and lakes and stuff that we like to frequent and they're catching big fish out of them and they're keeping them, but like I don't have anything against the Amish. That's all Matt's hate that he has in his heart, not mine.
That was a fun episode.
Yeah,
it's not like you're going to lose that audience.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not. You don't have to worry about losing the Amish. I'm pretty sure they don't have electricity. So,
all right. Anyways, before we pissed off any other,
let's see how many demographics we can offend today.
Let's jump in. Let's talk about springtime here in Bass. I know you frequently. Do you fish anything other than Susquehanna?
Well, so this year I've opened up a guide business on the Susquehanna, so it's hard for me to get away from it. But there's a couple little lakes around here that I like to frequent that have some big largemouth in them that I'll hit a couple times over the spring. But I mean, once the summertime comes, I'm almost exclusively on the river. But
do you oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, you next week we're gonna have you again, but you're gonna be with the Advanced Kayak Angler. For those that not familiar with this podcast, on my social media, we do have 2 shows a week: live show Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Central, which is your boy here, your host Armando, which I have a special guest every week to talk about live fishing and everything else in between. And then on Wednesday mornings, usually we'll have the Advanced Kayak Angler hosted by Kurt Smith. That's not a live show. That goes directly to the podcast, which you can listen on any podcast streaming platform where they talk specifics. And next week, you're going to be the guest, and you're going to be talking about your business as a guide.
Correct.
Starting off as a guide, which you were going to start off like 3 or 4 years ago. I remember you coming on this podcast like 3 or 4 years ago and mentioning
that. Initially, I was going to start off doing it out of kayaks.
Yeah.
And then I realized that kayak fishing is hard.
Yeah.
And, on top of teaching somebody how to fish a river, on top of teaching someone how to, have their boat positioning and everything to create success on a river, teaching someone the aspect of just flat out kayak fishing is difficult enough. And I'll be honest with you, that idea failed miserably, and I wasn't having fun because I wasn't able to adequately teach somebody what I wanted to teach them, or the experience that I wanted to give them on this river system, because this river system is special, and I don't want to waste somebody's time to come out here and teach them, basic kayak fishing skills, when I would rather just teach them how to catch big, giant brown fish that are hateful and angry.
Mm-hmm.
So
that, brother.
Yeah, so that whole that concept kind of got postponed and put on the back burner, and then it finally just ended. And last year, I got lucky enough to fall into a boat. And the rest is history. We're off.
That's awesome. But,
yeah,
I've seen some of your social media. I saw when you switched to a boat. I'm like, oh man, he's on a boat now. Like
yeah, man.
Jefferson's. We're moving on along.
I mean, moving on up, dude. The east side.
That's old school. I was watching a YouTube. I go to sleep binge watching YouTube videos. I go down that rabbit hole, different things. And one of the videos that I started watching was like biggest catch on every state and biggest catch on Pennsylvania. And I don't know how true this how reliable this video is, but the biggest catch supposedly in Pennsylvania was a flathead catfish on the Smallmouth River. I'm like, Jake would probably agree hatefully with that statement.
Yeah. So I believe the state record was recently set as of last year, maybe down in the Marietta area of the Susquehanna, and it was like a 57-pound flathead.
Yep.
I personally would like to eradicate flathead catfish from this river. I would like to take every single one of them and just fill up as many riverside dumpsters as I could possibly find with their carcasses, because they are they're aggressive predatory fish that are invasive to this waterway, and they have no business being here, and they are a detriment to the world-class smallmouth fishing that we have. And I know that catfish are popular amongst people, and I believe there's a place for it, but this, like, there would be outrage from any group. Like, if the flatheads invaded a world-class trout stream, all of the silly, fly fishermen with all their stupid bugs on their hats and stuff would be very upset about it. So
here we go. One more demographic we pissed off.
We're just gonna try to offend everybody, Armando. We're no one is getting left behind.
It's supposed to be productive video how to help people catch smallmouth bass, and here we go.
Well, we're getting there. We're close.
We're getting there.
We're already
getting there,
talking
people.
about bugs. So,
oh man, that is you're consistent. You've been tooting that horn since the first time I've had you on the podcast, like 5 years ago. Props to you for being consistent.
It's a problem, and it's not as much of a problem as it used to be, because I do feel like they've been regulated to some degree, but it is a problem. And when you have a river system that's already delicate because of pollution and other things that affect the river, adding an apex predator to the mix is not a good thing. So, just trying to preserve what we have here for ages and eras to come. So yeah, I'll continue to preach it, and I don't care who gets mad at me. But let's talk about smallmouth. Let's talk about how to catch them, man.
Something fun and exciting.
Yeah. Why are you always bringing us down with negativity, man?
I know, that's how I started off the podcast, talking about how to not do that, and yet here I am. All right, so when springtime comes, when do usually you see smallmouth bass start spawning? Is it the same time as largemouth bass? Is it earlier, later?
No, so they'll go a little earlier. They'll go a little earlier, and I think between the temperatures of like 55. Like, once the water temperature gets 55 in the tributaries, I believe that the smallmouth are moving up in the tributaries to spawn. I think that 55 number is the magic number. I think the true number is like 60, but I think 55 is when they're like, hey, it's time. Let's, like, it's like at 9 o'clock at night when your wife turns down the light to a low dim, and she's like, she gives you that wink, right? That's that 55-degree temperature mark. And then 60 is when, like, we can't talk about it on.
Now the question is, does that happen once a year for you too, or?
Maybe. Doubtful. Oh gosh, that's terrible. But yeah, no, I mean, like, so anywhere between 55 and 60 is really where I think that they really truly start to bed. But that could also be influenced by current flow, by water flow, and levels, right? If the river's blown out, they're not going to spawn, because they know that if they spawn, their eggs are going to get washed away, or they're going to spawn in areas where in a couple of days there won't be water. So, they will be pushed back by water levels rising and things like that. So, And we recently, I mean, we had that here within the last couple weeks, man. We had a warming trend where the water in the tributaries got up to like 50, 54 to 56 degrees in a lot of tributaries, and you saw a lot of fish make the push up into the tribs to, to go and to start their, their mating ritual. And then we had this intense, like extreme cool down where the water dropped, like the temperature dropped like crazy. Like we had one morning was like 27 degrees, and the water in the tributaries got down to like the low 40s. And when you go from mid 50s to low 40s, like that's an immediate pushback for those fish. Like they might be in position where they're going to spawn, but they're not going to spawn until the water temperature's right, because they know if they drop eggs, they're just going to die. Like the eggs won't hatch. So they're smart. They're nature's cool.
Yeah.
So
Nature's metal, as they say.
yeah.
One of the things that I've learned, I had not that long ago, I have Steve Barden, which has a segment now in the Serious Angler podcast about the science, the biology of bass. And I had him on the podcast, and we talked a little bit about what's the biggest myth about bass. And one of the things that he was, at least largemouth bass, because he's from Texas, so that's where he's most familiar with largemouth bass. And he was talking about one of the myths that we have about bass is that they'll spawn once and that's it, and that's not actually true. They'll spawn multiple times just for that reason, in case one litter is not the word. It's not cats. I don't.
Right. So it's if one of their if one of their broods doesn't materialize, so I'll say that I don't know about smallmouth. I don't know if the smallmouth here are spawning more than once. What I will say is that I have seen where there's at least 2, sometimes 3 different waves of spawning fish. So like the first wave will typically happen the first full moon in April. If the water temperatures are right, the first full moon in April, you'll have that biggest class of fish that'll be spawning. And then the big spawn, like the biggest spawn of the river, typically will happen in the full moon in May. And then, you'll kind of get some stragglers, so maybe some younger fish that'll spawn into June, but it's not as likely up here to have the spawning class fish in June, unless you have just an incredibly cold spring, which could result in a June spawn. But the May is typically the biggest one. April is where you get the biggest fish. May is when you get the most fish, and June is where you get the stragglers. And so what that does is, that creates 3 different opportunities for a successful, yearling class of fish. Now, one problem that we have up here in Pennsylvania is, we have an actual winter, and you don't want those fish to spawn very much later than June, because they won't be old enough or mature enough to make it through the impending winter. So that's important that those fish at a minimum get spawned out, by June, because if they don't, the likelihood of that year class of fish making it is probably slim to none. So yeah, a lot of different things affect that up here.
So when you're looking for, and I know it's Pennsylvania, so it's winter over there is not the same as winter in Alabama, Texas, California, and all that, or spring, I should say. So once you get into that April and you see, you're expecting the big girls to start spawning, what kind of baits, what do you rely on to try to catch them?
Let me start in March.
March? All right, cool.
I want to start in March because I feel like March is when it's honestly some of the most fun fishing. I love getting out there, when that water temperature makes that rise out of the 30s and starts creeping into the 40s. Man, some of the absolute best crankbait fishing you could ever imagine happens in the month of March on this river. There was a couple YouTube videos that I recently published of, crankbait fishing where, dude, I'm talking like every cast, every other cast for hours, where you're just out there just smoking fish, big fish, big fish after big fish after big fish on crankbaits. It is so much freaking fun to, like, I'm not fishing in super deep water, right? Maybe 6 to 8 feet of water, but they're in eddies, 6 to 8 feet of water. But I'm throwing like a 16-foot rock crawler, right? And the reason I'm doing that is because this is some juice, right? For your river anglers, for your current anglers, for your anglers that are, used to fishing in the river. You probably already know this, but for those of you who don't, if you're throwing an 8-foot crankbait in 8 foot of water and you're casting it upriver and pulling it down, it's never going to hit the bottom because the current's going to push it. To make it hit the bottom, you have to go considerably deeper than what the depth actually is, which is why I go with the 16-foot. But you pull that 16-foot down through that eddy line, and then it just loads up, and you're like, am I hooked on a log? Am I hooked on a rock? Oh, there's a head shake. That's a big-ass fish. And next thing you know, like you're pulling up tanks from the depths of the river, and it's just so much freaking fun, dude. Like that crankbait bite is it's incredible in the month of March. And I really, really, really love it.
What crankbait do you typically use? Is there any specific color, model, brand
So
you use?
I believe the best crankbaits made are made by Spro. I think the rock crawler is arguably one of the most versatile, and honestly, it's the best crankbait I think that's ever been made. I truly believe that.
What do you like it so much? What is it about that separates it from
it's consistent. It does everything well. It has good wobble. It deflects really well. They all run the same depth. That's one thing I've noticed is with the rock crawlers. Like, so if you buy some crankbaits will say like they're DT8, but they're only going to run like 6 feet. And then there'll be like a DT8 that runs 10 feet. I mean, it's different. The rock crawler is just it's just a very consistent bait. I love it. My next favorite, and this is if I'm fishing water that's maybe slightly less deep, I'll use the Spro Little John MD50. And I'm not going to get too bent up on color, right? I'll tell you right now, some of my best crankbait fish have came on a crankbait that has been colored in with a black Sharpie. Like I wish I was joking with you, but color, I think, is in the springtime when they're keying in on those crawfish and they're down on the bottom. I think color is very like not important at all.
Really?
I think it's a profile. I think they're looking for movement. They're looking for a profile. I mean, maybe if you're in super clear water, maybe. I mean, here, I just don't feel that color is important.
That specific time of the year or just in general?
Just that, I would say that specific time of the year, because typically your water's a little dirtier, right? It's a little dirtier in the spring because, you got a lot of fluctuation in current levels and you got rain and you got, this, that, and the other. So I just, I don't, man, I'm not joking. Like I've caught so many crankbait fish on a Sharpie, black colored Sharpie crankbait.
What is it, like a clear color before or?
No, a lot of times it'll be like something stupid, like really bright neon or some really bright red. And then I'll throw it out and it just doesn't look right in the water to my eye. So then I just dry it off and I just color it like I'm out there doing arts and crafts on the boat. But yeah, just a black dude. I'll tell you right now, man, I actually sent, I like the Bill Lewis MR6 crankbait as well, but I actually sent Bill Lewis an email last year and I had a Bill Lewis MR6 that I was throwing that I threw the paint off of it. It was like missing so much paint, and then I took it and I colored it in with a black Sharpie, and then I took a picture of it after I caught like 40 fish on it. I took a picture of it and I sent it to Bill Lewis, and I was like, "Can y'all make this color crankbait?" It was just black, like it was just a black Sharpie and crankbait. But
You blackface that crankbait.
yeah, I mean, I did. Yeah. Like, I don't know, man. I don't think color is as important, this time of year or that time of year. I think it's a profile. I think that they're looking for, they're eating crawfish. They're trying to get that high protein meal. I think that anything that scurries across the bottom, they're like, what's that?
So a red crankbait or red jackhammer,
Yeah,
red jig,
all that red. I mean, some guys are going to call me a liar and they're going to swear by it and they're going to say, "Oh, this is so important." Red, in certain places down south, red is incredibly important.
Yes, I've been to Toledo Bend and I've casted. It's not smallmouth bass; it's largemouth bass. But I cast it into a dog wagon, seeing my side scan. There was a school of them, and I got nothing. I couldn't get nothing on the green pumpkin, and I dyed the little appendages on some spiked red dye or pink dye. I can't remember which one. Basically, just turned the appendages completely red.
Mm-hmm.
Next cast, boom! Like it makes a huge difference here in the South.
So I would say that red probably has an importance here, like a week. There's like a week-long period where red has maybe will catch you more fish than a different color. I am not about to sit here and tell your listeners or anybody that's listening on my end to go out and buy red crankbaits, because I feel like they would be wasting their money. Because as I said previously, all you need is any color crankbait and a black Sharpie marker, and you're good. Like, you're good. You're good after that.
Let me ask you this: what when you throw it, what's your setup? Well, setup, never mind. We all know kind of what the setup is usually for crankbaits. What line are you using? Are you going straight braid? Are you one of those believers that you're in a kayak you need to do braid?
I will tell you, in a kayak, you better be using braid as a main line. If you're going to use fluorocarbon, great, but you better be using braid as a main line. And the reason being is because when you're cranking and you're getting, you get one of those fish that catches that bait and starts swimming at you with it. If you're not using a high enough speed reel or have, no stretch in your line, i.e. braid, you are going to lose that fish. Yeah. You're going to lose that fish. Some of that has transferred over to the boat for me. I would say my crankbait setup right now has fluorocarbon. It's straight fluorocarbon.
Or straight fluoro on your boat?
It's on the boat, yes. If I was on the kayak, I would be using a braid to fluoro leader. But in the boat, I've used more fluorocarbon because I'm not getting pulled towards that bait. I have a more steady or solid platform where I'm not getting moved around by a hook set. So I'm okay with fluorocarbon, straight fluorocarbon on the boat.
Yeah, I think the biggest advocate for that, and you see it on his social media, is Drew Gregory. Every time Drew Gregory makes a hook set, you see that surely, and it's just an observation. It's not criticism on the Sholey design that he himself designed. It's just the nature of a light setup, as far as kayak goes. Like, he'll do a that fish is gonna take him for a sleigh ride. He'll do a 180, a 360. If you don't have braid, that's why he fishes with straight braid. Is like, on that small of a kayak, if you're not having braid, more time than not, you're gonna lose that fish if you're going straight fluoro. In my opinion, I don't care how good you are to hook sets. It's just such a movable platform. From
fluorocarbon has stretch.
Yeah.
It has limited stretch. It doesn't have as much stretch as monofilament does, but it has stretch. And if you have stretch as you're getting pulled towards a fish, you're creating an avenue for that fish to get off.
Yeah. And
So
that's the other thing. The crankbait is going to pull on a kayak. The crankbait will literally pull you towards him.
right.
Like especially deep diving crankbaits. I
Mm-hmm.
stopped throwing those because I would cast it and it almost felt like the bait stood in its one place and the kayak was actually being pulled
Yeah.
by
Well,
a
you don't get the full depth of the
yeah,
crankbait because the kayak is being pulled towards the bait as the bait is being reeled towards the kayak. So you're
yeah,
not getting the full depth of it.
yeah.
But
So moving on into like that's March. What happens when it starts warming up a little bit, going into
so
April and all that? What do you do?
April typically brings pretty dirty water and a lot of fluctuation in flow rates. So I will opt a lot of times when I'm still power fishing, I will opt for the chatterbait, right? The jackhammer. I think just is a huge player in April. You can really do well on a double willow blades spinnerbait too. Something, or maybe the Indiana blades, maybe not as big as the double willows. Like I like to keep my spinnerbaits in the river. I like to keep them compact, but um, something with a little bit of thump to it, right? But yeah, that spinnerbait and that chatterbait bite in April going into May, it's pretty amazing.
If I
Um,
remember correctly, Jody Quinn, whenever, and maybe this wasn't in May, but if I remember correctly, I think the first two Hobie BOS in Susquehanna was won by Jody Quinn. I think, if I remember correctly, he was using a spinnerbait with a Colorado blade, which is the kind of like the bigger spoon style blade. And I think
mhm.
he said it was orange. Do you try to look like an accent color? Do you go with Colorado blades or just straight Indiana or willow plates?
I don't think that was this. I don't think that was the Susquehanna. I think the first year that Jody won the Susquehanna, he did it with a Z-Man. What's the long bang sticks? He had a bang
Mm,
sticks that he was fishing for the first year, because the first year we had some pretty low water and some pretty tough conditions, and it was, I don't want to say it was a full finesse bite, but he had caught a lot of finesse fish that year. Um, I don't necessarily think that there's a big play for the accent colored blade in this river. I'll tell you that if I could only pick one blade style for smallmouth bass in the river, it would always be, if I could only pick one, it would always be a double willow blade. I think the double willow blade is just looks so much like the
yeah,
bait fish that are in the river.
yeah.
That
More natural look.
it's a very versatile blade style.
You know, there used to be a company here in Texas. I think it was called Predator Lure or something like that. I remember I watched it on a boat show and I bought a couple of their spinner baits. And their spinner baits, I'm gonna tell you, it worked. But the spinner bait was not, instead of having, you had the regular hook with the skirt and everything, and you can put a trailer on it. But instead of having a willow, any type of blade, what it would have instead on the top would be another hook, like a circle, not a circle hook, but anyway, I can't remember what type of hook it was. It wasn't
Ooh.
a Texas rig, and a Kitech middle. So it
Hmm.
was kind of like a Carolina rig, not Carolina rig, one of a rig,
An
but
A
just
rig, yeah.
yeah, kind of like an A rig. And I would get bit on those. I would really get bit on those.
So I can't say I've ever used anything like that. I will say, and I hate to even admit this to the listeners because I still have an eBay
Have to
search
always say,
saved. I have an eBay search saved for this specific spinnerbait, but the Jackal Super Eruption,
mm,
which is not made anymore, that spinnerbait, if you do find it on eBay, will run anywhere between $25 and $50. per spinnerbait, but that spinnerbait is by far the most superior spinnerbait ever built, ever made.
Really?
Yeah, it has more. I mean, I would say it has equal, if not more, thump than a jackhammer, and it always runs balanced and true. And man, is that spinnerbait special! It's a special spinnerbait.
Jackal is an underrated company. They're what is it? The name of the frog? Kira frogs or something like that?
I don't use their frogs. I
Oh
don't
my
use their
god, they're
frogs.
so good.
No,
Their
I'm not.
design on their frogs not only is unique, but it's effective. It not
So,
it moves a lot of water.
so I mean, if we're gonna start talking about frogs, we're actually getting into the summer months. But me personally, there's a company who used to be local to me before he moved to the Carolinas. Um, his name is Tactical Fishing Company, and he makes it used to be called the B2 popping frog. I don't know what he rebranded or renamed it as, but it's a popping frog, and I can tell you that is the best frog that I've ever thrown for smallmouth. Tell me we're gonna fish if I come out there for broodstock too.
It's Wolf of Walmart. For those listening and not watching, listening, Wolf of Walmart.
It's Dave.
Dave. I was gonna say
Yeah.
Duke. Dave Erkey, who has the what's his the whole angler podcast. Great podcast is on the Catch Network. I've been a guest on that. He's asking Jake, tell me where you're gonna fish if I go out there for broodstock.
So I'll gladly fish with Dave if he comes out for broodstock, but I gotta get in shape because I gotta look tip top. I gotta look for my best. I gotta look my
you
best.
Look gorgeous, buddy. You look
gorgeous. Like I need to get like some abs or something for whenever Dave comes.
Get that check, buddy.
He's a California boy though. Like I want to actually be appealing. I want to be appealing to him if he gets on my boat.
Well, you have to have like the surf. I don't know, wear a wig with the.
Should I get like a fake mullet? Maybe.
Yeah.
Something for him to grab a hold of.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Oh boy.
Now we gone down. All right. He says that's my nickname, Bang Sticks. That's his nickname in high school. Corey, guys, and for my friends and fellow kayakers, how you doing? Corey, great to see you again. Hope the family's doing better. Kira Frog, that's the one that Wolf of Walmart that was the one I was talking about. Yeah, that works amazing. Jackal used to make, but I hated it. Like a buzz bait, but their buzz bait, it was something weird because the blade for the buzz bait was like in an axle, so it kind of like it would tangle on my line all the time. Every time I cast it, it's like it's getting tangled all the time. I hated it.
So were you using braid?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
So if you would have tied a very short monofilament leader onto that braid, you wouldn't have had those issues at all. So Jackal makes a buzz bait called the Firecracker.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, you want to talk about the loudest buzz bait known to man? So I'll tell you a real quick funny story about that Jackal Firecracker. Me and my buddy Billy were fishing on the river. We were up at Port Trevorton, way up on the river. And I was fishing one side of an island, and I was throwing this firecracker, and I was catching fish. But like it's super loud, like super loud ass buzzbait. Billy was on a complete opposite side of the island. Now, mind you, the Susquehanna, for those of you who have never been here, in a lot of places, it's close to, if not a mile wide. Okay. So Billy was on a complete opposite side of the island than I was on. We were on opposite sides of the river, and I was throwing this firecracker. And dude, I shit you not, like he came around the bottom tip of the island, and he's like, dude, do you hear that sound? Like, what kind of freaking bird or bug is that? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then I cast out the buzzbait, and it was like, he's like, that's your buzzbait? I'm like, yeah, bro. Like, that's my buzzbait. He goes, I heard that shit on the opposite side of the island. I was like, yeah. I was like, I'm over here calling smallmouth in right now with this freaking buzzbait. It's loud, dude, and it resonates a long ways. If they're in the mood to eat something that's loud and aggressive, that firecracker is hard to beat because it is the loudest and most aggressive thing I've ever heard in my life.
Really?
Yeah.
So the going back to what we're talking about, March. So we talk March, April. We talk about crankbaits, spinnerbaits, jackhammers. What else are you going as we get deeper into spring?
So I think another bait that you have to have during those times, and you always have to have it tied on any river when you're fishing for smallmouth, is either a Ned rig or a tube, right? They basically are doing the same exact thing, but you have to have it, right? You have to have either a Ned rig or a tube because there's going to be days where that's all they're going to eat. So you got to have it. But moving into, like as you're, fishing later on in April, as the water starts to warm and, you start getting closer to that summertime, man, I like to have a crawler, a topwater crawler.
Hmm.
Like the one that has like the wings on it, like
Yeah.
the depths and the jackal pompadours and the Spro makes one called a creeper. I like to have that style of bait because one thing you see in the springtime and especially as the water starts to get warmer, you see a lot of baby ducks. Baby ducks are everywhere, right? Well, I don't want to upset any animal lovers on this
PETA's going to be
podcast,
here on our chat pretty soon.
but what I can tell you is that I have witnessed smallmouth bass eat baby ducks.
You get a lot of musky bites when you're throwing something like that.
Yeah, you do. You do.
Not a lot,
But
I'm assuming, because
I mean,
it's so hard to catch.
musky. Yeah, they're few and far between anyway. But I've watched baby ducks get annihilated by smallmouth bass, and that is a vicious bite.
You're talking about live or just like somewhere in the dark web where you just
No, I've actually seen it. I've
Oh,
seen
okay.
it in person where a school of ducks was getting blown up on by smallmouth. And
It's kind of weird to be like, yeah.
like it's I mean it's terrible, right? Because who doesn't love baby ducks? But in the same token, like that's a pretty freaking cool bite. And then whenever you're able to produce a bait like it, like a creeper, like one of those crawler style baits, where it looks like a duck, like that's a vicious bite. And dude, it is a unique topwater bite. But that is a bait that as the water warms and you start seeing the baby ducks, that is a bait that I will have tied on. And when you see if you have low enough water or clear enough water and you can sight fish, you throw that creeper over top of a big smallmouth and it's gonna get eaten.
Do you what's that bait? Oh my god, this is one of the first baits that I bought, and I think it's still one of the most underrated baits. I think it's the same one you're talking about, Nightcrawler, but it has another name. It's kind of like those top water baits that has that little wings, metal wings.
Yeah,
What's
it's
called?
is it made by Jackal?
No, just in general, that old school like
Oh, you're talking about a jitterbug.
1970s bait.
You're talking about a jitterbug, probably.
Jitterbug, that's the one.
Yeah,
That's one of the most underrated baits.
yeah. I mean, Ryan
Ryan
Dahl
Dahl
just
is
said
on the
the
chat.
Jackal Pompadour, man. The Pompadour is insane. It's a good bait. The one thing I don't like about the Pompadour is that the wings will tend to bend out pretty easy if you get a couple big fish on it. You do have to adjust those wings a good bit. I actually prefer the Spro creepers. I feel like they're actually a little better than the Pompadours. But they only come in one size and they come in limited colors, which I would like to see Spro work on that. But either way, I think the Creeper is probably a good rival to the Pompadour. And I don't have I'm not rich enough to spend money on depths. So, yeah.
It's always good to see Ryan Dolls in the comments. Good,
Right?
one of the OGs.
Ryan Dahl is one of my favorite humans.
Yes, I haven't met him in person, but Brad
I
he
have,
talks about
and
him.
he, as nice as he is online, he's equally
Yeah.
as nice in person.
I gotta get Ryan. I gotta get you on the podcast soon. But okay, so I'm not familiar with the Pompadour or the other one you just mentioned. Is that like jitterbug or is something
So
similar? Different?
it's similar to a
You look
jitterbug,
for
but
it while
it has
you talk.
wings. So
Go
it
ahead.
has wings on it that makes it walk on a steady retrieve. Like the wings make it walk. So like it's. You ever seen the Trump dance? Right.
Go down that route.
So the
Oh,
pompadour
I see.
the pompadour does the Trump dance as you just steady retrieve it. So
Let me share this screen. Okay, I see what you're talking about. Yeah, I've seen this bait. If I can remember how to do this. Share screen for those that are watching on the live show. This is from Tackle Warehouse. That's a pompadour, right?
that's the creeper. That's the Spro creeper.
Oh,
Great bait.
I put
Yeah.
pompadour. What did that one came up?
Well, probably because it's better than a pompadour.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it's a solid bait. And don't get too focused on color. If anybody's gonna go buy this, just buy either bone or black. That's it. Don't get crazy. Don't think you got to have one of each color. Don't go buy a green one because I don't know any ducks that have green bellies. Go buy a bone one or buy a black one. That's it. That's all you need. Bone and black. That's it.
That actually, I just about to share. I found it now. Let's just share that. Pompadour. I think this is the one. That's the one you're talking about, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. So it has like a little. God, I forgot the name of.
Yeah,
the
that tail spinner on the back
Tail
is
spinner.
pointless.
It's pointless.
Yeah, it's pointless.
All right, they're just doing that for show.
I think so. Because if it's walking with those wings,
Yeah.
that tail spinner is just kind of stupid, in my opinion.
So it is kind of like a jitterbug, only probably a little bit more action than a jitterbug. I still
Oh,
think
dude, no, it's a lot more action than a jitterbug.
Yeah.
So the jitterbug will go side to side, and
Yeah.
it'll hold on a second. My kid's getting ready to walk through the door, so he's going. Hey, so Dad's on a podcast, so don't say anything too crazy.
Like, yeah, don't follow your dad, kid.
So it's Armando with Bass Kayak and Beers. Armando.
What's up?
Would you mind
Don't
doing
say
me a
anything
huge
that's
favor?
gonna embarrass your dad, right?
Can you get me a glass of iced tea for your dearest father because you love him so much?
That is not how he talks.
Or I'll be your slave.
Be my that. I don't think you can say slave on Instagram.
God.
Anyway,
Oh man, how old is your son?
he's 17, man. He's a
Oh.
good kid. He's a good kid. I've been blessed with a kid who has incredible work ethic, and he's got a halfway decent head on his shoulders. I put all of this on his mom. I don't think he got any of those traits from me. But he's had
Mailman, maybe? No.
I don't even know if he's mine. I think he actually belongs. I think he's like the mailman's kid. But
Now it's the Amazon driver.
yeah. But yeah, like he's got a job. He's had a job since he's been 14. He pays for basically all of his own shit, and he's opening up a landscaping business. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, he's a good kid.
That takes you back. Remember when I don't know if you did it, but like when you were young, around that age, and you wanted to make some extra cash, and
I did a
will
lot.
tell you, hey, go lawn, earn some money by mowing somebody's lawn, like neighbors or something like that. Or your cousin.
Nah, I did a lot of drugs as a kid. I didn't really work a whole lot.
How did that turn out?
I'm a cop.
So many ways we can go with that.
Yeah,
Makes sense. That tracks, right?
it's in tracking the whole way.
Started young. Oh, that's so funny. All right, let's get this puppy on the rails again.
Hey, let's get back on track.
Yeah, get back on track before we keep going down that road. Ryan Doll is on the comments again. Says thank you, Jake.
No
What about
problem,
me?
buddy.
I said nice things about you, Ryan. What about me? I'm not gonna get thanks. I'm just playing, Ryan.
Hmm.
But so we talked about that. We talked about the jackal, the all sorts of baits. What else have we missing? I know you're not big on color, but what else do you throw? What else are you looking for? Before you answer, I remember. I guess I have another thing that I wanted to ask before you answer that. Which was Nolan Minor. I remember when he won the Susquehanna, he was throwing that bait, the gizmo bait, which
Yeah.
I guess it's kind of like a top water, like sort of like a spider, similar
Yeah.
to like the Lunker
So
Hunter spider.
so we during that time of the year, we had a large cicada hatch.
That's what I
Um,
wanted to go with it. Yes.
yeah. So he was using that evergreen gizmo
Yeah.
to sight fish for big smallmouth. And um you know Nolan and his brother Ewing are both incredible fishermen,
Yes. It's in
and
the
they
blood.
did, they have done extremely well everywhere they've gone. But I think there was a lot of unnecessary attention given to that gizmo because it was being used to target bigger fish and upgrades. But the reality is, and what I think people really need to realize is that um, almost all of his bag was caught on a Chapo or Whopper Plopper style bait. So, he caught a majority of his bag on that prop style bait earlier in the day and then upgraded with the bigger fish on, with that gizmo. But that gizmo is not the only bait that works like that. You can get those small little cicada type lures that Megabass makes. I think Savage Gear makes one. But like the reality is, and I've seen Jeff Little do this, you can take a Z-Man goat toad and cut the tail off of it and throw it out there on a hook and catch these fish too, because all you're doing is showing them a profile of what looks like a cicada. Like, it doesn't have to be, we don't have to overcomplicate it, and you don't have to go out there and buy a gizmo that costs $15 and lasts 5 fish. You don't have to go buy that thing, or what is it, $10 for one? Like, you don't have to
Mm,
go and buy that lure to catch those fish. You can do it in a different way. And the other thing
$10.
too is that lure. So that lure is actually, it's really, really lightweight, and
Yep.
you have to have a certain rod and reel to even be able to effectively cast that lure. So I I know it works. I know the gizmo has, it has
It has its place.
it has an allure to it, but the reality is I just don't think it's a necessity to have in the tackle box. I think you could achieve the same thing at doing it much cheaper than buying those gizmos.
Yeah, $10 for a soft plastic bait is
And that's on sale. You're
yeah.
saving, so they're originally like $12, I think, is what they cost.
I checked them out after I listened to that podcast on KBN where we talked about it, and I went to my local tackle shop, Fun and Sun Tackle. I remember the sales clerk, which I know I'm friends with. He now works with Guggen Squad. He was telling me, he's like, dude, we have it on clearance. Like, you can get them dirt cheap, like 2 for 1,
Yeah.
something like that. We don't sell those. Like, and I was like, really? I was like, oh, I'll
I,
check it out. Didn't work.
I think the
It
same thing.
melted really quickly though. Like in Texas, like I left it on my tackle box, and one day I was gonna use it, and it was all melted away. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
that didn't
I
last.
think so. It works the same way as a Lastech. If you put it next to any other
Yeah,
plastic, it'll melt. But
learned that the hard way.
the
Nobody
other
told
thing
me that.
too is I look at that bait and I just think to myself, like, if you had a very miniature sized popper, you could do the same thing.
Yeah,
We're not talking about something that is so incredibly specific that you have to go buy a gizmo. That size profile is all that matters. If you match the size of a cicada when there's a cicada hatch and you throw it over top of a smallmouth, they're not going to come up and examine it to determine whether or not it's a cicada. They're going to automatically assume it's a cicada and they're going to come up and eat it. So I mean, I don't know. I'm not taking anything away from what Nolan said. That bait's effective. It works, but I wouldn't. Again, I'm not telling your listeners to go spend $12 or $13 on these gizmos and then have to go buy a fishing rod and reel to be able to even throw it when they could achieve the same thing with something else that's less expensive.
Yeah, and it all and it's has that like that is very specific niche, right? That cicada
Yeah,
dome hatch, whatever you want to call it.
yeah.
Um, we've had it in Texas, and I've seen it where that jitterbug works really good during that time.
So I'm
Um,
gonna give you a funny story quick. That year that Nolan won, I actually was walking across a bridge in Duncannon that goes across the river. Um, yeah, see, yeah, Ryan Dahl confirmed what I was saying.
so Randall
Um,
says when we had that hatch here, black pop with a black feather treble, smoked the smallies, and the carp were slurping it off,
yeah,
one and after another.
but so the year that Nolan won in the practice week leading up to it, I was walking across the Clarks Ferry Bridge, and I looked over the bridge, and I could see smallmouth down there sitting, back off the bridge pier a little bit, and I picked up some pebbles off the side of the road and just kind of dropped them over. And as soon as they broke the surface of the water, like 4 smallmouth were coming up and looking for what broke the surface of the water. They were going to eat it. They immediately closed in on what broke the surface of the water, but it wasn't there anymore because it was a rock and it sunk. So whether that would have been a gizmo or whether that would have been a small popper or whether that would have been a chunk of Z-Man plastic with a hook attached to it, they would have ate it. So that's the bite that he was keying in on. And without a doubt, like it was the right thing to key in on. It was what the bigger fish were eating. It just doesn't have to be a gizmo.
All right. That's a cool point. One other bait that I wanted to ask you, which we don't get this in Texas, but I've seen it a lot in YouTube videos, is what is it? Helgramite? Is that how you pronounce it?
Helgramites? Yeah.
Yeah. Does that really work over there? Like I know it's this
Yeah.
specific type of bug, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. But again,
Never seen it in Texas. But.
It's the same thing. It's a tube. It's a Ned rig. It's a tube, right? I mean, maybe if you're in ultra clear water, you want to get a Helgramite specific looking bait, but you could also just throw a Z-Man TRD. It looks like a Helgramite.
Oh, the hogs with the Z? Is that the one they call it?
Just a flat out TRD. Like everybody overcomplicates this shit. Everybody goes out and buys all the colors, and they go out and they buy everything that looks like X, Y, and Z. But the reality is if you cut off those stupid appendages right there, what is that? It's a Z-Man TRD. Like,
oh, I know which one you're saying. Yeah.
Like
I actually have a few of those.
Everybody overcomplicates it when it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. Fishermen make it so much harder than it actually is.
And yet we use live scope. that's why I never understood it. Like seriously, if we wanted to catch fish, we just put a minnow on a Carolina rig and that's it.
If you're using live scope, you're cheating.
This turned into the Randy Blockett episode. All right, Jake, I've had you for an hour. You just finished recording another episode. So you've been literally on that sofa for the last 2 hours.
Iron Man, dude. I'm going strong.
Thank you, though, for coming up to the podcast, man. So for those that are watching or listening on the podcast, Jake is going to be on the Advanced Kayak Angler, which is on the same podcast. You can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, pretty much any podcast streaming platform. Next week, Wednesday, and he's going to be talking about his guided service out of the Susquehanna. But if you don't mind, Jake, you can feel free to plug it in right now so people know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't mind, I'll just go through and do everything. I'll do all the things. But before I go, I need to leave the listeners with 5 baits that they have to have.
Top 5, everyone.
For smallmouth fishing.
There we go.
And this is
Do it.
year round. You have to have these 5 baits, and maybe some are going to play more than in certain times of the year. But number one is you have to have a Ned rig or a tube.
Mm-hmm.
No ifs, ands, or buts. You have to have that bait if you're going to fish for smallmouth bass. Number 2 is you must have a spinner bait. The way smallmouth bass eat a spinner bait certain times of the year, it's insane. Number 3, you have to have a whopper plopper.
Yep.
90. Like, go with the small ones, right? The small whopper plopper is going to catch every fish in the river, okay? But you have to have it, right? You have to have that. I think you also have to have a popper, like what Ryan was saying, just a small popper. I think that's a more finesse topwater presentation, but there's certain periods where it really, really, really works well. It's a very good bug imitator. It's stuff that they eat a lot of. And the other thing that I could say that the spinnerbait and the chatterbait are probably the same. So I'm not going to say that you have to have a chatterbait, because spinnerbait and chatterbait I feel like are going to be imitating the same things. But the last bait that I think you need to have is you need to have some sort of small swim bait, some sort of small minnow style swim bait to really, die down the presentation, die down the sound and the vibration, and just have something that looks supernatural. If you have those 5 baits, you are going to do extremely well for yourself smallmouth fishing. With all that said,
Juice.
yeah, call it juice if you'd like. I think it's the basics. But I this year I am opening a guide business, or it's already opened. It's already started. It's Chocolate Town River Guide right there below my name. It is based on the Susquehanna and Juniata river valleys. Anywhere in the valleys is in the river systems here is where I will guide out of. Basically between Goldsboro and Sunbury, or from up to Juniata all the way to Lewistown. So the guide business is a retirement goal for me. I'm starting it early, maybe in the hopes that I can retire a little early and not have to work in law enforcement anymore. So there's that. But with that being
for
said,
your service, by the way.
Well, I appreciate that. I do.
It's not the best, not the best of times right now for that.
It's a great job, but it's a terrible job.
Yeah.
But without having the companies that support me, that I've made through my time in kayak fishing, for whatever notoriety that I've gained in kayak fishing, I've been able to establish some partnerships and some relationships with some really great companies. Temple Fork Outfitters, I'm an ambassador for them. I'm also working with Baits, making content for them for their fishing reels. Lakewood Tackle, making some of the best tackle organization boxes in the game. Yak Attack, been with Yak Attack for a while. Finn's Braid, I really like using their braided line. It doesn't fade. And also Wind Rider. Wind Rider is an apparel company. They make shorts, shirts, rain gear, cold weather gear. Really love their stuff. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention my kayak roots, Innovative Sportsman, making the best daggone river kayak that you can buy, and powering that with a Torpedo motor, of course. So those are my partnerships and my sponsorships, and I wouldn't know what to do without them. So,
Innovative Sportsman, I tried that one on what was it with Jeff Little on iCast. It was I'm really impressed with it. Really, really good,
dude. It's
stable.
So it's such a basic platform when you look at it, but the possibilities are like endless.
Yeah,
on what you can add to it, what you can do with it. It's not a lightweight boat. Everyone thinks it's inflatable. It's going to be lightweight. It's not. It's durable.
Yeah.
It's a durable platform. It's not a platform like you go and buy some of these inflatables and they're promoting our boat only weighs 50 pounds. That's because you use like the lightest weight material that you can. When you get the Innovative Sportsman inflatable, like that boat is like double ply material and you can run it up on rocks. And it's the same material that they make whitewater rafts out of. So you can abuse it and really it's gonna, it's gonna be a very durable watercraft for you. And on top of like what you were saying, incredibly stable boat.
Yeah.
You really, really have to try to even get close to flipping that boat. Like
It was impressive.
Try to do it. So
it was impressive.
But
Flies too. If you put a little motor on it, really goes really fast.
Yes, it does.
All right, well, buddy, thank you so much. Again, I really appreciate you for taking the time. I know you've been doing this for the last 2 hours, so again, thank you. And I plan to be there sometime. What's the best time to go after summer? To go hire your services as a guide.
July into August. If you come out July into August, how many ever days you're going to be here for? Like you could do an early morning trip and have some of the best top water fishing you ever have in your life. And then you could come back in the late evening and repeat the same best top water fishing you'd have in your life. And then the middle of the day, you can take a siesta and maybe take a little nap because it's going to be hot and humid and gross.
I'm from Texas, bro.
No, it's different. It's different. Like it's different. It's a nasty, humid kind of heat.
What is it? Let me ask you about the name Chocolate Town. Is that what you're close to Hershey? Is Susquehanna close to Hershey, Pennsylvania? Or is that more of a
Hershey, Pennsylvania is only about 15 minutes away from the closest place on the river. I live in Hershey, which is where the name Chocolate Town derives from. So I chose Chocolate Town just because it was, it's a way for someone to, honestly, if someone's here in Hershey and it's a huge visitors area where a lot of people come here for the different amenities. If a husband and wife come here with their 2 kids and they have, 4 or 5 days planned at the park, by day 3 or 4 of that, the husband is really contemplating, divorcing his family and flying to Mexico. So maybe on that, one of those days that the husband's here, he can break up the monotony of the daily grind of the, visiting the park and everything else. And maybe that husband can come book a fishing trip with me.
Sounds good. I might pick you up on that.
But yeah, for sure, man. Come on out.
Definitely. I got some friends over there in that area, northeast. And I haven't gone in a while, so
I just can't. I can't wait to put the silver fox on my boat.
What's the silver fox?
You.
Ooh, okay. I was gonna say the Chocolate Town sounds like your OnlyFans handle, but
Kurt and I literally just talked about this.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah,
Kurt will mix it up. All right, buddy. I'll let you go. See you again.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you coming onto the podcast. And again, for those that are watching, listening, you can follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram on the Bass Kayak and Beers. Check out our podcast. You can listen on Spotify, iHeart, pretty much every major podcast streaming platforms. We got 2 shows, a live shows on Thursdays that it gets uploaded either Friday or Monday onto the podcast streaming platform, and then the Advanced Kayak Angler with Kurt Smith, which gives you tips and tricks to help you catch more fish. So that's it. Have a great night, everyone. Peace out. If you're going to be in the water, please wear your PFDs.